The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So, while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Meemaw and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 134 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. And you're probably saying to yourself, boy, this episode's late. And you would be right, considering we are recording it in June, and this is our May episode. But to quote a certain K-itician, life gets in the way sometimes. I know he didn't say that, but yeah, we've been traveling all over the country. We've been developing video games. We've been on sets. We've been in the Caribbean. And we have been making our girlfriends watch Blade Runner over and over and over again. So, sorry we're late.
The original and...
Oh, dear Lord.
So, sorry we're late. Without further ado, I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Gabriel Rowald.
I don't have anything creative to say tonight. I did not plan this. Well, I had extra time and I did not plan this part.
You had a month, Gabe.
You
had over a month.
Problem? I was going to try to sing a little bit of Zeppelin, but nobody wants that.
I believe everyone is happy that you didn't.
Yeah. So I chose not to.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Second, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Ink Studios, Andrew Zumwalt. You're muted, Andrew.
Well, there goes all that. All right. Well, fine.
It looked really.
It looked impressive.
I really had that too. Oh.
Third, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom Haggis.
Hello, Cleveland! I've always wanted to say that. So.
Fourth, writer, actor, and director, Kyle Fine.
I never learned to play guitar, but I know every note on my 4-inch skin flute.
Okay,
you win for...
God dang it, I was a leader in the clubhouse. And I got,
Zamfir would be proud, Kyle.
Very proud. All right.
That guy's amazing.
Let's poke the monkey, find out what we're discussing.
Ladies and gentlemen, melody makers and six-string drummers, welcome to the main event. Tonight, two rock and roll ducks clash in a battle of the bands. Which will strike the right tone, and which one goes out
on a low note. In the first corner, from 2008, directed by Davis Guggenheim. Starring The Edge, Jimmy Page, and Jack White. It might get loud! In the second corner, from 2013, written by Mark Monroe, directed by Dave Grohl, starring Trent Reznor, Tom Petty, and Mick Fleetwood. Sound City!
I got halfway through one documentary and realized that I had watched it before I realized that I had watched it. But yeah.
Which one?
It Might Get Loud.
You had seen it before?
I had seen it before, and I'm like, this all looks really familiar. Maybe I dreamt it. Like, I don't know. It was just weird for me. And then I'm like, yeah, I did watch this.
You're a Zeppelin fan. I can't believe you hadn't seen it, and then it didn't register. So
yeah, I don't know why it didn't register.
Yeah,
it's weird. All right, let's go on to our first round, which is writing/editing for documentaries.
Yeah, so we've done, I don't know, almost a dozen documentary episodes of the show, and we stick editing in with writing because it seems like the editor, in addition to the director, kind of helps dictate the story of these two, of documentaries in general. With these, it's a little bit different because, I'll start with Sound City. Sound City has a story. It has a linear story that it's trying to tell, and the story of the soundboard and its history and what happened to it when Sound City USA shuts down. And so it's a very linear story, and it just goes from point A to point B. It Might Get Loud is more discusses more about the concept of the electric guitar and how different guitarists use it. We actually get to talk to three of the greatest guitarists of all time and get them together. With that, I think I prefer the writing in It Might Get Loud because it's a little bit more ambitious. And Davis Guggenheim is a very ambitious documentarian. He might be the best documentarian we have right now. He does a wonderful job of telling these stories and being able to look at the nuance and what's important here. The problem I had Sound City on my list to watch, and one of the reasons I pushed it to be a part of this podcast is because it would give me an excuse to finally sit down and watch it. And so I was very excited to see it. I have to tell you, I was a little disappointed with the last half hour of Sound City because it does become kind of the Dave Grohl show. And I love Dave Grohl. I think he's fantastic. But I do think that it really kind of becomes about him towards the end and less about the soundboard and what they're doing with it and the collaborative project that he works on with the soundboard. And so it seems almost like they were trying to fill time. Maybe there wasn't enough story of Sound City to fill, to make something officially a feature. And so they add this stuff with Paul McCartney at the end and everything else. And, for me, documentaries, I don't really feel that the filmmaker should be part of the subject. And this is one of those cases where the filmmaker did become part of the subject. And I don't know. I mean, it's kind of the way of rock musicians, though, too. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's kind of a problem with, I don't want to say like non-filmmaking people making film sometimes when you set out to make documentary and it veers into self-promotion. That really turned me off Sound City at the end. It basically was just an ad for his album. And I thought the first part was fairly interesting. There's no denying that the subject matter they're talking about has an interesting story. I don't think it's the best told. And yeah, towards the end, I echo your sentiments of kind of being frustrated with watching a glorified ad. My issue with It Might Get Loud is that I think there is a tendency to when and I don't know if it goes hand in hand all the time, but when you start talking about one thing, or the subject is, say, the history of the electric guitar, and then you start bringing in people and their personalities, inevitably the story shifts to be about them and their life and, you know, their opinions and things like that. And nothing is more subjective than art and what is art and how to make art. And these guys all have very different opinions about the electric guitar, and in a way that's, you know, I would say that's, you know, to be expected about such a versatile tool that has such a long history. But some of it did also feel very much like they were trying to force their personality into their idea of the guitar, and it was less about the actual instrument and more about them talking about how interesting or cool or hip they were. And that kind of turned me off too. I like documentaries to be sort of unbiased, I guess, or just more critical examinations. But that's really a personal style and not really a knock on the movie. But I think, yeah, both these movies had, I think, flaws in the way they presented their topics, but interesting subjects. And for a movie like Sound City, directed by someone who's not a film director, it really doesn't stick out like a sore thumb that it's being done by someone who doesn't have much experience doing. I'm sure he had a lot of help. But yeah, that's to me, that's a more interesting sort of story, but it does really suffer in some of the editing and the choices in the shift of the story. Whereas It Might Get Loud is probably more consistent.
I think I'm going to have to disrespectfully disagree. No, respectfully disagree. No.
Oh,
I don't know.
Disrespectfully disagree.
I'm going to have to disrespectfully agree with you. No. I found It Might Get Loud to be very disjointed, and I didn't feel like it had much of a story. It was just kind of these little vignettes that they kind of cobbled together, and I didn't really feel like it had any kind of a story to it. And I was really disappointed with it because, I mean, geez, it's Jimmy Page and Jack White and The Edge, whatever his real name is. I don't know. Now, I'm not, okay, this is just my personal opinion. I'm not a big fan of The Edge, although he's a decent guitarist. I'm not a fan of his style. But I just felt like it was just those people. You know, and it was just like they talked and then they slammed this stuff together, and I didn't feel like there was any story or point to it. It was just kind of like these vignettes that they just kind of cobbled together. Whereas I felt like Sound City did have more of a story. Sure, maybe it ends up as kind of a Dave Grohl fest at the end, but it definitely was a more interesting story about the studio and that soundboard that was so, you know, amazing, like one of a kind in the whole world. And I just found it far more compelling, and I thought the interviews were more interesting. I thought the editing was better. You know, now I don't remember the time frame of these. Well, they're not that far apart. I thought the cinematography was better in Sound City. They had a lot more.
You're jumping all over our categories here, Gabe.
Yeah, but it's like you're right. You're right. I felt as far as writing / editing, I thought Sound City was far more concise in telling the story, and it was far more interesting to me. Whereas it was just like with It Might Get Loud, it's just like, okay, well, we've got these guitarists in a room kind of trying to like jam with each other, and that's what it ends up being. And I was really disappointed because those guitarists are fantastic. The documentary was not. Guess which way I'm going to vote.
I there's a certain amount of bias that comes into these two. I will admit that I love Jack White, and I'm going to go see him in 2 months. And I love U2, and I love Led Zeppelin. I love Nirvana, but I'm not a huge Foo Fighters fan. I'm not, I don't follow them very closely, which isn't a popular thing to say right now. But and so I think that might be part of it, that it kind of dips into this Dave Grohl show that I wasn't particularly interested, but I could watch Jack White play with a Coke bottle all day long. I thought it was just fantastic and very entertaining, and to get a look inside of some of their methods and stuff, and that's kind of my point originally too, was that It Might Get Loud doesn't have a story, but sometimes these documentaries aren't about the story; it's about getting information across. So I'm not sure how you do a story about electric guitars and have a narrative. So,
but at the same time, I would say that they attempted to have a story and a bit of an arch, bringing them all together at the end, having them play together, having them talk about their different styles, and then doing a compare and contrast almost between all three of them and how they use the instrument different and the things that they can do and what they felt was special or important about the instrument versus the next person. And so I guess I kind of saw that as this, you kind of introduced your three main characters and then you kind of explain to their background and who they are and how they do, and then you slowly bring them together. So I kind of, and maybe that is a very weird way of looking at it, but that's how I saw the narrative coming to play, at least in It Might Get Loud. Sound City, I guess my best comparison is it felt like a VH1 Behind the Music. That's what it really felt like. The way that it was told and the way that it was, and it had some really cool information. It had some things that I didn't know about that were really kind of fascinating to see some of that blossom and develop. I'm trying to stay too much away from the character side for the next round, but it was interesting to see some of the different interactions that happened at Sound City and what made Sound City so amazing and popular and the place to be kind of thing. And then, I have to agree a little bit that it like the last 20 minutes could have probably just been nixed and it would have been a complete story. But, yeah, I don't know. I think having to, It Might Get Loud, I guess, just had this feeling of kind of three different documentaries put together and then a conglomerate at the end. So to write that, direct it, pull it, kind of weave it in together, I think probably took a little bit of patience, considering there's probably a ton of footage and, random everyday footage versus what they shot. And, that takes a little bit of skill, I guess, and quality and being able to make it seem cohesive, because otherwise it's just a bunch of clips. So, I don't know.
All right.
Did I poke anybody?
Do you guys have anything you want to add to this?
Oh, I didn't know we were allowed to do unpopular opinions, Tom. I wasn't aware that was a thing we could do.
Yes, you could do unpopular opinions.
I'm required to one unpopular opinion of each show.
Oh, okay. I'll give you mine. Led Zeppelin's the only good band in either of these documentaries.
Oh, shit. Are you fucking kidding me?
Wow.
Yeah, I hate U2, and I don't care for Jack White.
Unpopular, not shitty.
Oh, no, I think they're bad. No, I think they're bad at their job.
You're getting
Wow.
Hey, art is completely subjective. Look,
that's correct.
Dennis Farina's Unsolved Mysteries is my favorite TV show. If it's not yours, that's fine. I understand.
All right.
Yeah, I can't go there. Sorry. Your opinion of them didn't change at all watching these?
No, my opinion of Edge that he's an overrated egomaniac remains very much on high alert.
Oh, I don't think he can be an egomaniac and Bono be an egomaniac and last this long. I think
I don't know.
anyone's an egomaniac. I don't think the two of them could be in the band together.
They kind of circle around their shitty music asshole together like neutron stars.
Holy shit!
Wow.
Okay.
Not only are these potentially unpopular, they're very strong opinions.
Oh, I just don't like you too. That's all.
I'm with you on that. I'm not a huge fan of you two. No, I'm not.
What?
And again, it's just a style
I'm
thing.
with you too.
I respect.
Look at that,
I respect
Tom.
their musicianship, but I'm not a fan. It's that's all there is to it.
Yeah, I find the older I get, the more I can look at someone and go, they're a really good musician, but I just don't like their music. And that's the way it is with. I don't know what the hell that is.
Cat dying.
Yeah, sounds like.
Yeah, I would agree with you guys. Just take the last 48 seconds of this.
No.
There are only a few U2 songs that I like. There are only a couple Jack White songs that I like.
No.
But I could listen to Led Zeppelin all day.
This is absolute bullshit. I can't believe we're fucking talking
In
about
my opinion, Jack White should not have been there. It should have been David Gilmour. Should have been David Gilmour, Jimmy Page, and I would have let the Edge be in there because I do think he's talented.
It's supposed to be three different generations of guitarists. You don't want to be like two old fucks from the 70s. Jesus, no one would watch it.
Oh, I would watch the shit out of it.
You really want the Edge to be the youngster in the room?
Yeah, that's fine.
God no.
They could keep calling him Kid.
Yeah.
What do you think,
I'm
Kid?
sorry. Jack White's amazing. You guys are idiots.
All right, let's put it to a vote, Tom.
Well, I'm going to vote for It Might Get Loud.
All right. Andrew.
I'm going to actually vote for Sound City.
All right. Gabe.
Yeah, Sound City, no question.
Yes, question.
No question whatsoever.
And Kyle.
Well, I feel hypocritical now not voting for the movie that I said had the only good band in it. But I've been a hypocrite my whole life, so I'll vote for Sound City.
This is going to be a long night.
There is barely any trivia about either of these films, so
I don't want to fucking hear you say it anyway, so...
Well, didn't you hear...
Did you know that Jack White sucks?
No, but I don't
think he
about
sucks.
Jack White. I have trivia about Jack White.
Yeah, what's that?
He 33% of this movie's budget were his pancake makeup.
And by the way,
And then I think another 25% was his Amish clothes.
and
Now we're
by
just-
the way, I don't saying that Jack White sucks. I don't think it's trivia.
I don't think he sucks.
No, I don't think he sucks. I
doesn't
just think he
suck.
spends a lot on clown makeup.
Wow.
Oh my god. You
Poor
guys are all...
guy.
You are old bastards. You have no fucking taste.
You're older than us.
I understand that, but I'm not set in my ways. I still go out and find new music because I'm not going to become one of those old bastards that are like, music sucks, man.
I listen to my Led Zeppelin holding my shotgun while I yell at kids to get off my lawn.
Yeah, we know. We know.
All right, second round. Oh, where are we? Good Lord. Which is acting/subjects.
Yeah, so it looks like we pretty much bled into that, and I do mean bled. Wow. So the one thing that we haven't really touched on, because I'm not sure that I really want to go toe-to-toe about Jimmy, Edge, and Jack, but because it sounds like a thing you would order at a bar. I do want to talk a little bit about Sound City. I felt that the actual subject of Sound City was not just the place, but really the focus on the wave board and what it actually did for music. The recordings, the sound, the quality, that specific resonance that we're so used to listening to when it comes to rock music, alternative music, and there's just something different about it that I really felt that this movie went into a lot more in detail of how it became and how, Sound City was like this shitty shack basically that they set up and anything goes, and it just kind of was like, woo! I mean, people found their wives there and who were just secretaries. It just kind of was this madhouse that was producing, it makes me think of the Saturday Night Live skit that, I produce records and I produce number one hits, and it just, this building that was just kind of nothing, and it got turned into this thing, and partially because of this board. And I found it very interesting that they went into who and how it got created, what made it different, the sound qualities. I think there was one part in there where Nirvana is recording, and one of the things that they did was they went back every night after they were doing some recordings, and they listened to the recording on cassette, which I thought was really funny. But they listened to it off of a cassette, and they were amazed by the imperfections and the tonality that came out of their recordings, and how that was much more personal than getting everything perfect and having all the sounds exactly right and the pitches exactly perfect, because it was more personal moment. And I felt that was a really neat aspect of hearing about what this place did for a lot of those bands that came in. So I found that to be very fascinating. I thought it was interesting to have a content or a subject, that was a thing in this aspect that many people went in and out of. It was like a revolving door, basically, but made such greatness out of them. As to, it might get loud. I mean, we have these. I'll tell you one of my favorite parts of this movie, and I talked a little bit about this in the last round, was at the very end, having all three of them get together and sing The Weight on acoustics, and they just kind of did their thing, and they kind of went back and forth. I thought was actually a really cool wrap up to the film, and really bringing them together in the, as I think Tom said here at the beginning of this round, the three different generations, really bringing them in together. I thought was a really, really cool piece. I don't know if it was planned or if it was not planned, or if it was just like, hey, guys, here's some guitars, play something for us, or whatever. I don't know really, but I thought that was a neat ending. I guess we've talked mostly about those three, so feel free to, I guess, share any other opinions, because it sounds like we have some strong ones, and I'm not sure I'm strong to say, oh, I hate this guy or that guy. So
nobody's hating anyone. We just don't. Just like, you're not fans. There's a difference.
Okay, no, and that's fair. That's fair.
I'll jump in and give some real technical analysis here. The subject of Sound City, this board, and how it, I want to use the word forces, but it draws like this performance out of these artists who've never experienced playing through anything like it before, to me is genuinely fascinating. And when they play the clips of the music and talk about everything that's been recorded there, now you have to think, are these albums this good because of where they were recorded or because of who recorded them, right? And I think it's probably a combination of the two that kind of captures lightning in a bottle. Agreed. Right? But the sound of this board, and it's hard. I'm not a musical expert or, technical. I don't have any technical schooling in it, but it has such an interesting sound. And I love the idea of it, capturing what the artists play in a unique way that can't be replicated and isn't like altered and leaves in the imperfections and kind of generates the raw musicality. I think that's really cool. And it's really interesting because you take the musician's word for it, how difficult it is to play through it and what it brought out of them. And I thought that was really interesting to see because, that's just like, I know that's cool. It's a cool peek behind the curtain of that stuff. I really honestly think Jack White would have been great in the Sound City documentary because he talks a lot about disliking the effects and the artificialness of things. And I would love to hear his opinions on the Sound City board or what he could have done through it, because it seems like something that'd be right up his alley. If they ever talked to him or asked him about it, but it seems, something that he'd be interested in. The idea of It Might Get Loud that I found fascinating, and I'll give them both credit, is all these people talking about using this instrument as a medium to say what they want to say, right? They want to get these things out into the world through this instrument, and all the different approaches they take to get that sound out of their head and into the real world. People, loving effects and processors and using them all as tools to kind of capture their voice, and other people saying, you have to fight and struggle with it, and you have to basically beat it into submission to get what you want out of it. And it really is just a microcosm of life and what us having a purpose or an ideal, and we all have different approaches on how to achieve those things. And so I think you can find that in a lot of art. You can find that in a lot of, other aspects of life too, is that it kind of boils down to that. But I thought they both had really cool ideas at their core. I just think the execution lets them down in certain places. That's my technical analysis. Well,
and even when he was talking about how he plays chords to cancel out other melodies and harmonies with what he plays, and then uses echo to fill in those gaps to make you hear things that aren't actually there, I thought was incredibly fascinating that you can even do that on a guitar. To be able to pull that out and say, yes, this is how to do that, or this is what I figured out in my head, is, it shows the brilliance of a person that has mastered their crafts and taken it past what most people would do. When it comes, one of the things you mentioned with the board, the thing I thought was most fascinating about it is it was that board was referred to as the most analog sounding digital board, which I think is absolutely hilarious, since all of those things should not go in the same sentence, but it understood and could capture an analog sound digitally. And I think that is something that is very difficult to replicate, and is amazing that they did that. I don't know if the next generation version of the boards, because they are still mixing or making these boards, I don't know if they have the same quality as the first one. They may or may not.
I think it was interesting. It Might Get Loud. The reason, they chose these, and the stories that they chose, and the anecdotes. When I sit down with Jimmy Page, a lot of his stories were reflection, and it was, this is what we did, this is how we did it. And Edge really focused on, this is what we're doing now. This is how we use effects pedals, and this is what it is. And Jack White really kind of presents the future, that this is, we've been playing guitars this long, but there's still so much more that we can do with it. And I thought that was it was really well put together. We could have talked to Jimmy Page about what he sees in the future of the electric guitar, the guitar in general, but we didn't. We kind of kept him with past stories, because he's not putting any new music out. So, with Studio City, it's the first hour of it's such a great documentary, and it really kind of just roped me in. And when they rolled the board out of the studio, I was just kind of looked down to see how much time was left, and I was amazed at what are they going to fill this time with. And I feel that there were maybe some stories that were left behind, but I don't know. It would be an interesting debate who's the hardest working man in music right now. Is it Jack White or is it Dave Grohl? Because both of them are working their asses off, putting out new music. I mean, Jack White has 3 different music groups that he works with, and he just rotates from one to the other as he just kind of, the Rocketeers get burned out. All right, so we're gonna go work with Dead Weather. All right, they're burned out, and I'm gonna go solo for an album. And I don't know, it's incredible. So.
Yeah, some of the things I found interesting about these personalities, it was interesting to see them kind of quote unquote behind the scenes, and then also see them like playing kind of quote unquote live. One of the things that surprised me the most was watching Jimmy Page play, and how many actual mistakes he made when he was playing. That they were minor, but he tripped up on a few things, and I was like, that's to me that's amazing, because he's one of the most iconic guitarists of all time, and it made him human to me. It's like it made him more relatable and actually more of an inspiration, because I can play and make mistakes. I can do that. The key is what do? You just keep going. You keep going and you just keep playing, and nobody really remembers those mistakes. And it's live, and who knows? Maybe I don't know what guitars he was playing. Maybe they weren't his or whatever. But I found that really fascinating, and I found it fascinating that they left that in. For somebody like that, I have to say, my opinion. I like Jack White. I like the White Stripes. I like his playing, but I thought. I'm not sure they presented his personality very well. He came across as very weird to me, in It Might Get Loud, and it kind of turned me off on Jack White a little bit, and I didn't expect that. And sure, he's unique and he's got a unique style and a unique approach, but I think just like I'm not sure they presented his personality in the best light. And maybe it was I don't know if that's really what he's like. I have zero idea. And maybe it's just like a persona he was trying to play. He was trying to be cool or something. He was the cool young gun in the room with Jimmy Page and the Edge, And I just found that a little bit weird with him. And I was surprised that I felt that way, because I like you, Tom, I really like Jack White. I like his music. I like the things he's doing for music. I actually went down. He had a truck.
I missed it.
Yeah, he had a truck come down to one of the local record shops. What was it, Triple Z or something? I don't remember what it's called. But he had a truck come down, and he had all this stuff pressed on vinyl. And, it was kind of like this resurgence of vinyl. And it was just the coolest thing. And I thought, he's really doing things for music. And I'm not sure that this documentary really did things for him, in my opinion. Now, in Sound City, there were so many great musicians in that. I just really loved, and I think the way that this maybe should have fallen into the previous category, but the way they put it together, the way they presented those musicians, really showed them in a positive light. And even if you weren't, a fan of that musician or their band or their style or whatever, you really had respect for them and what they did in that studio, and how they kind of made history there in that studio. So, well,
just
as far as the personality is concerned, that's kind of thoughts.
Those old footages of like Fleetwood Mac coming in, and it's just amazing to me to see some of that, and that still exists and is still around, not just in pictures, but actual old Super 8 or whatnot.
Right. And the stories, hearing the stories of how they came together and how random it is. It's like, wow, that's crazy.
Or, one of the guys that, they grabbed some 16, 17-year-old off the street, gave her a job as a secretary, and was like, she's hot, I want her to be my wife, and marries her. It's amazing to hear even just some of that stuff. And again, just a building that the shape of it happened to make better music, reverb with a soundboard that was a whim. I don't know. Sorry, Mike. I know we went over. I see
That's
your
all right.
panicky face.
That's all right. I'm not panicking. I just
you
wanted
just
to.
always look that way.
I always look this way, like a deer in headlights. I will say, although I was trying to give Tom a bunch of flack, just because I don't like their music doesn't mean that I don't respect what they do. Like, I think the reason the like 3 or 4 songs that I like from U2 is because of the sound, the different sound that they bring into those songs. And with Jack White, like I've got to agree with Tom. I could listen to him play on a Coke bottle for a while. I thought that was awesome. Even though I watched it a second time and I had faint memories of watching it the first time. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. But yeah, Sound City, just seeing and hearing everything that came off of that board was astounding. It was brilliant. I think that was the biggest piece, and I agree. I think Dave Grohl is one of the hardest working musicians. I don't know that much about Jack White, and I'm pretty sure he is probably always trying to do something for music.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, he's a huge ambassador of Record Store Day, and,
right? Well, and I also think he is that weird. I think
he might be.
I mean, it goes back to insanity breeds genius, and I'm not saying that he's insane. I'm just saying that I think he is a genius, and that is just the way that he acts.
He's quirky.
He's quirky.
I think he doesn't like to be nailed down. You know, in terms of a style or a particular, even being part of a particular group, he just wants to have that freedom to always know that he's going to keep changing and he's going to keep doing new stuff. So.
All right.
Yeah, and I think interestingly, he reaches into the past. He brings the history of music forward, but also moves music forward.
Absolutely,
I would agree.
Yep. All right, let's put it to a vote. Andrew.
I'm a bit of an audio junkie, so Sound City.
Sound City. Gabe.
Yeah, I think just the artists that we see and the way they're presented, Sound City.
Kyle?
Yeah, Sound City for me.
All right, and Tom?
It might get loud.
Are you going to start yelling or something? Or
no, I'm not going to. No, I'm not. I
was playing off of it might get loud.
No, I might not get loud. I'll get passive aggressive. That's my documentary. I might get passive aggressive.
I would watch that sometimes. Sometime.
All right. Third round. Directing. That was a question.
Yeah, and we've probably crossed categories here a bit, and directing is interesting.
You guys tend to do that to me.
Yeah, directing is kind of interesting in documentaries as well, because like what does that actually entail? I think it has something to do with discovering the story. What the story is, and then going out and collecting the footage, whether that's actually finding historical footage or creating new footage, doing interviews, in those kinds of things. And then I think it also does come down to, and we talked about this in the first category under writing, I think it does kind of come down to editing, because once you've got this stuff, you do have to kind of assemble it into somewhat of a story. You need to make it something that's comprehensible, and you don't just slap all the footage together and say this is a documentary. So I think Dave Grohl did an amazing job of that in Sound City. He went out and he found historical footage. He created new interviews with artists who have worked there in the studio, or have some knowledge of it, or are influential artists today, and he put that all together. Sure, I didn't really think about it. I didn't have the exact same feeling that you guys did, that it turned into kind of a Dave Grohl show at the end, but it did. It really did. And it did seem kind of like, okay, here's this amazing soundboard that is one of a kind in the world, and I'm rich enough to take it and put it in my studio. But I think he did that with the best of intentions in preserving it and continuing to use it and those kinds of things. And I think he did for not being a documentarian, I think he did a really amazing job of putting this stuff together. And it really seemed cohesive and enjoyable to me. It was a compelling story that I enjoyed watching. Sound, or it might get loud. They did a great job of picking the artists. They picked some really interesting artists to put together. But where it fell apart was like making it into a cohesive story. And I didn't feel like it was, it felt like it kind of disjointed. It felt like it jumped around a lot, and it disappointed me. And I feel like they also didn't spend enough time with the music. It was about music. It was about guitarists. It was about that kind of stuff. And I just don't feel like they spent enough time with it. And the only time that we get any fairly complete, time with the music is at the very, very end, where they play a song that isn't associated with any of them. They just play a song from a completely different band, which is fine. But it's like, I would have liked to see longer segments, maybe even whole songs, or at least something of each of these guitarists playing their thing, showing their styles, and seeing that up close and personal. As kind of a severely amateur guitarist myself, I really like to see them up close and see what they're doing. And there are a few hints of that, but it's so rare in there. And I think they could have spent a little less time with these people's personalities and spent more time with their music. But again, that's just my opinion on it. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't doubt that Davis Guggenheim was coming up with something to film, and I love rock music, and it probably started as sitting around having a beer with somebody, and it'd be great to get together, and I'm sure they threw out names, and this is where it landed. But I mean, if you're going to dedicate a couple of years of your life to a documentary, you might as well be shooting something that you want to know about and you want to explore. But I feel like because the history of the guitar isn't linear, it's not, you can't, I mean, it's much more like, branches of a tree that is, there's offshoots and people making innovations, and some people are building off of each other, and some people are just doing new stuff all on their own. I think that a documentary is going to have that disjointed feeling to it. I don't. Was there a point at which any of them kind of pointed to someone else in the room and as an influence? Because all three of them seemed to kind of pretty much stand on their own.
They did. It felt. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember any of them saying, "Oh, Jimmy Page influenced me," or.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they all kind of. There's a nod towards the classic blues, Robert Johnson, that they all kind of come out of that stump, basically. That, and then kind of went off and did their own thing, and that's kind of the beauty of rock music, and that blues foundation that it has. But I can't get over Sound City's the structure of it, and just knowing when to just take a step back, and and I feel I'm worried that there were stories that were left out because Dave Grohl had to get his session with Paul McCartney in there.
Well, could be, yeah.
That's all I got.
Dead air. Dead air.
Dead air. Oh yeah, they love that, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all in awe of the music and moment.
Are you guys done?
I think
I'm good.
I think we've. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think, Tom, you made a really good point, that each one of those guitarists are, again, a master of their craft in the sense that you're waving at me now, and I don't even know what that means anymore. And now there's a tongue involved. But all three of those guitarists are definitely a master of their craft, and it's, you always have that accreditation of, especially a lot of people that play or have taught themselves, or in some bands where they're like, I studied this person, or I got my licks from this, and then I kind of learned that, and that's what kind of got me branching off. And I would say that, to your point, that's a fascinating little tidbit that, all three of them are really working off of the basis of rock and roll and the blues and the basics of where that musical genre erupted from, and built their own style and their own persona around how they've mastered that craft. And that, to me, I think is maybe a super important part that really shows off those three artists. Whether you love the artist or not, they are good at their craft, and they are not, a person that's just fumbling around with the guitar. They have invented new ways to make that music special and powerful. And to me, I think that's an important part of that documentary is talking about that and showing that. I don't know. I totally see where you're coming from when you say that, because that definitely has a power to that story that they're telling, and is fascinating, because you don't see that all the time. Like I said, there's a lot of people that have developed their style or their sound based off of, I listened to a lot of Jimi Hendrix, or I listened to a lot of Elvis, and so I kind of do this because of him, or whatever whatever the case may be. So that is something to take note of. I think that makes this a little bit of a different story.
And the pressure on artists in 2022 you have to come up with something completely new and original after a millennia of art. Hey, you know what? Just pull something new out. And I don't know that there's any shame to stand on the shoulder of the people that came before us and build off of it.
No. I don't want to. That is not what I was saying at all.
No. I know. I was taking it in a different direction. I'm just saying. I just think that it's. So when you see someone like Jack White that's trying new things, but he's still coming out of that blues background. Beck is another music artist that he kind of does his own thing, and he's always just trying to stretch what's possible out there. Arcade Fire is another one that are always trying new things, and kudos to them. I can't imagine with the ability to come up with something new that takes music in a new direction. So I don't really know where the hell I was going with that. I think I'm just trying to fill time now. So
no,
One thing I took from these movies, and it's it's one of the most frustrating things to me, is that all these people are so good at their craft, they can sit down, know nothing about who they're playing with, and get something to sound good within a few minutes. And that just makes me sick. That people are so talented. I really hate it. It's like when you see someone so gorgeous and you're like, why? And then these people sit down and they're like, oh yeah, we can make a song. I mean, you talk about Sound City and the ad at the end, basically, for Dave Grohl's album. All these guys wrote music together within 24 hours and got it recorded. You know, he said he had like one 24-hour session with each musician who did it. And that's pretty nuts to be able to put that together. It takes a really high level of skill and competency, and it's so it's like the ability to create with people like that is so fragile and rare, and it's really cool to see it sort of celebrated and talked about and get a closer examination of it. And that's one of the things I loved about that's probably the thing that's my favorite part of It Might Get Loud, is how you really can see that these people are trying to express something, and they all have different ideas about how to use this instrument as their voice to get things across. And I thought that was really cool.
It is amazing, and as I get older, there's more and more people out there doing things that I know that I'll never be able to do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I could start learning the guitar today until the day I die, and I'll never get as good as they are. And it's humbling to see that they can hear that difference in the soundboard, but that attention to detail and that thing that will fly over the heads of 99% of the people that listen to the album. But to know that difference is there. It's incredible.
All right,
We
are
can
you
vote.
guys done? Vote? All
You guys want to vote? Let's vote.
Let's vote. Gabe.
Sound City.
Kyle.
I'm going to make Tom happy. I'll vote for It Might Get Loud.
Tom.
I'm happy anyway, but I'll say It Might Get Loud as well.
Oh,
And Andrew.
For this
One of
category,
us.
I'm going
One
to
of us.
say It Might Get Loud.
But not that I like one more than the other. But I do.
All right. Oh, my mic's a little. There we go.
Oh my god.
Let's move on to our fourth round.
Oh, sorry. You said It Might Get Loud.
Overall.
well, what else can we say that we haven't already talked about? I think these are interesting ideas, both of these, for for films, for exploration that you can dive into in a documentary. I think they're both pulled off with varying levels of success. But you can find something interesting, or at least worth diving deeper into and discussing deeper in both of them. And it's really cool, especially in Sound City, to hear from the artists themselves, and you get it in It Might Get Loud too, to hear in their own words what these things mean to them and how they change their life, and they're involved in their art and their process. That's something I'm always interested in, especially when you get a chance to see the perspective of people you would consider like virtuosos in their field, like really high level performers. You don't get that very often. I think it can veer into self-promotion and become a bit masturbatory at times about how cool and edgy and hip and unique they are. And that's always something that is a trap that, fame and notoriety can bring you, as you start to believe your own hype, stuff about yourself. But I thought they were both interesting in their own ways. I would say they both had major flaws, and that probably keep them from being what I would consider like great documentaries. But they're about interesting subjects and contain, interesting discussions and thoughts and ideas. So I think they're definitely worth your time to like check out, but your mileage may vary on how much you like them.
And I would say that maybe is why my draw is more towards Sound City, because I'll tell you, it was really fascinating on both sides of it to kind of see. It's always cool to see, in a time that you weren't alive, but you grew up listening to music that they have produced. it's always fascinating to see, you know, where they came from and what their roots are and how they came to be this musician that you listen to, and you listen to their music and you know it and you love it, or, you know, from whatever aspect, whether it be what band or not band or whatever that you love. And so I think that is fascinating. I think I'm more drawn to the Sound City aspect of it because I think, like Tom said, I could pick up a guitar and I think I can play row your boat still. And I think that's all I got. And I don't know if I could ever get beyond that. And I know I will never be remotely even as good as some of the worst guitars out there. And it's just these people have a talent. But I enjoy, you know, unfortunately I don't have the luxury of being able to work on an analog actual console to be able to do music editing and stuff. And, you know, a little bit of film that we work on, one of the things I enjoy, I love doing the music and the audio editing and the mixing. I think it is so fascinating. It is so fun and all the cool stuff that you can do. And so to see a movie, well, the first part of that movie, to be focused on that engineering and that tech and the way that they can alter the sounds and the way that they were shifting things in and out and what it did was just, it touched that tingle, and it was just so cool to see. I know, but I mean, that stuff excites me because it's just so cool. And then all of the backgrounds of all these people that came and got to experience that. And watching the movie, you're never going to hear exactly what they heard off of that board. You're never going to experience what they experienced, but you can get a little bit closer to it. And I think that's maybe what drew me in a little bit closer or connected a little bit better with that movie for me.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating to be able to see these iconic artists behind the scenes, see them more intimately, to hear these stories. And, you know, we always imagine, I just imagine their lives being just, well, and maybe they are, charmed to a certain degree. But it's also really fascinating to me to see how they struggled early on, to see the twists of fate, the chance that brought them together. And then actually to like I said when I was talking about Jimmy Page before, to actually watch them play and see that they're not perfect all the time. Like they're human, but they're really, really talented humans. And I think these kinds of documentaries are really fascinating to get that view of these artists. And, you know, I'm sure there are plenty of music documentaries that focus on these artists, like, you know, especially rock and roll ones about these artists falling apart and, you know, getting in trouble with drugs and alcohol and those kinds of things. So it's kind of actually nice to see some documentaries that show these artists in their full glory and be able to, you know, witness their talent up close, which we don't often get to do. So that's what I enjoyed about both of these documentaries.
One of the shadows that were kind of hanging over Sound City when I watched it. So we picked these back in December. And then Taylor Hawkins died at the end of March. And so it was just a couple of weeks after he died. And just seeing him, you know, playing drums with all his idols and, you know, how much he and, you know, Dave Grohl love each other. And just that brotherhood of music. It was really cool to see. And that, you know, that I mean, so many of his performances are kind of, you know, preserved forever. But I know documentary is a little bit different with that because you get to kind of see them when they're not playing and just kind of, you know, hanging out and stuff. So that was something for me every time he was on the screen. It was just just another reminder of what had happened just a little bit before that. So just thought I'd bring it down a bit.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say with documentaries too, I especially if it's a subject that piques your interest in any way, from what you're watching, it builds a feeling of excitement and that feel good feeling that you watch from a good movie versus when you watch a fictional piece and you enjoy watching it. You still get that feel good, but this is a real connection. These are real people instead of just watching these random characters on your screen. And I think that makes a big difference, especially when it's something that you can connect with, such as music or an artist or whatever the case may be. And I think that makes a difference with documentaries versus just watching a fun film. And I think that brings a little more passion to not only shooting something like that, because you have to have that if you're going to continue for 2-3 years, but your viewer gets a different experience. It's not just, I'm going to watch a movie. You feel like you're learning something about these people's lives. And sometimes, the documentaries even go as far as, what some people would say is invading their lives, and you really get a deep dive into some of these people. And so it's interesting to have that perspective with something like a documentary versus just a film that is loosely based on their life or something. So
yeah, it's one of those things that, like when people set out to do a documentary, there's always that feeling of, are you doing it as an entertainer or are you doing it as a historian? And I feel like Davis Guggenheim's, It Might Get Loud really was more of a, wouldn't it be cool if we got these three together? A lot of the things that they talk about have already been documented, and people are aware of the things. There's been dozens of books written about Led Zeppelin and U2, but there was a sense that Dave Grohl went into Sound City. He wanted to preserve the board, but he also wanted to preserve the story too, and he wanted the story of the studio to be able to be viewed 50 years from now and people appreciate where this music's from, because we'll undoubtedly still be listening to that music. I mean, we're listening to it now 50 years later. There's no reason to say we won't be listening to it another 50 years from now. So,
well, I will be in 50 years. I'll be listening to it hands down.
I'll be listening to some of it. I will also be listening to new music in the year 5072 because I'm not going to be an old fart.
I will also be listening to music because I have a very eclectic taste.
Yes, Billie Eilish the third. I will go buy her album.
There you go. Mike Keeler's, big debut when it comes up. From the one song that you've sang on stage.
Which song is that?
There was a karaoke night.
Oh yeah, I know.
You can perform. So everyone has a story. Everyone has a beginning.
Yeah.
This is the story of Mike.
Yeah. All right.
I want to be on stage sometime with Mike and just do mic check, and he's like, "I'm good." That'd be awesome.
Another dad joke.
Wow.
That wasn't a dad joke. That was solid.
Wow.
Oh man.
All right. Are you guys spent?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Let's put it to a vote. Kyle.
Both interesting in some ways and incomplete documentaries, but I'm going to vote for Sound City.
Okie dokie. Tom?
I like Sound City a lot more than I did an hour ago after everything you guys said. And I agree it's better structurally, but like I said at the beginning, came in with bias. I like the musicians in It Might Get Loud better, and I'm going to watch it more, and I like it. I think it's a more interesting, entertaining movie.
Okay.
And you're going to take your guitar and go home.
I'm home, and my guitar's right there.
Andrew?
I'm going to go with Sound City really on the topic because it really was so fascinating to learn about the new Ev. So,
okay, Gabe.
Sound City.
All right. I've been thinking I may have actually recommended It Might Get Loud at one point. I think I may have.
And then you don't even remember watching.
Then I don't even remember watching it. A lot's happened since I watched it. I did enjoy watching it a second time, though. I really did. So, yeah, I'm going to do the maths. So let's move on to recommendations, which we'll start with Tom.
So another movie that's very much in this vein, and then there's even some overlap in it, is a documentary by Andrew Slater that came out 2018 called Echo in the Canyon. And it's a documentary about the California music scene in the 1960s and how musicians all went to California to kind of emulate the Beatles sound, and then they actually wound up making their own sound. And it goes with the Beatles and the Byrds, and how that influenced generations all the way up through Tom Petty. And this movie actually came out after Tom Petty died, and he's in it quite a bit. If the movie has any flaws, it's that it kind of suffers from the same Sound City problem. Jacob Dylan runs with the story, and he conducts all the interviews, and then he also performs a concert where he's performing these songs. So we hear less from the original artist and more from him in this huge stage show they did in LA for the benefit of the documentary. But it's still very interesting, and it's if you like all of the little tidbit stories in anecdotes and stuff about how bands got formed and where certain songs came from and stuff. There's a ton of that in there. David Crosby is absolutely hilarious, by the way. So, so Echo in the Canyon.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Andrew?
Welcome.
I went with a recommendation that kind of mixes our genre with the documentary and music and something I enjoy, which is a lot of technology and computers and such. And that is a documentary called Downloaded in 2013. And it is the birth of Napster and the birth of basically how music and file sharing became this enormous, massive expansion of life. And it changed how artists not only produce music, how they put it out, going back to what was legal, what wasn't legal, and just the laws that were changed and the things that changed on the face of the planet from a user standpoint, from a listener standpoint, from an artist standpoint, and all the troubles, of course, that Napster got into. And on top of that, just basically them starting in a garage and, where it kind of the digital revolution of sharing of music and how that has come so far to what we do today and how we share music today, was all because of a bunch of kids in college. So it's a really fascinating documentary. So Downloaded.
Cool. Thank you, Andrew.
Illegally.
Gabe.
I said that.
I'm going to recommend another music documentary, which was directed by Edgar Wright, who is, I believe, one of our favorite directors, at least some of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's called The Sparks Brothers, and it's about a band called Sparks, which is actually two brothers that get together and start creating music. And you watch it, and it's really fascinating. It's really well done. It's well put together, very interesting. About this group that I've never heard of, but has been hugely influential over time. And they've been doing this since like the 60s, and they're still at it. And their style has changed. They've crossed genres many times, and you start to believe that maybe they may have influenced a lot of the major music trends over time. Because it seems like they do these things and you're like, oh, that sounds familiar. Oh, but they did it before the music that you're familiar with. And it's the two brothers are really fun and interesting to watch. Edgar Wright does a really good job as an interviewer. They have a lot of great artists talking about the Sparks and how the Sparks influenced them, and how they were big fans of not the Sparks, just Sparks. And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know exactly what I was getting into. But the name Edgar Wright on it made me a little more confident, and I really ended up enjoying it. So, yeah, I would highly recommend the Sparks Brothers.
All right. Thank you, Gabe. Kyle?
Okay, I'm going to start my recommendation by calling myself out. As I got caught basically saying to someone, I didn't really like Sam Raimi very much. And then I went and saw a movie that I think is probably the best Sam Raimi movie I've seen since I've seen Army of Darkness. And that is, yes, I'm going to recommend a blockbuster. I really liked the new Doctor Strange and something of the multiverse.
Nice.
I have to find the damn name of it now. Yeah, the new Doctor Strange. Let's put it that way.
Oh.
One of my main critiques of Sam Raimi at times has been like the goofiness of it, and I thought this movie had a great tone that was unlike most other Marvel movies, and it kind of kept some of Sam Raimi's vision and ideas, and I thought it kind of elevated it above some of the other Marvel movies. And so I have to eat my hat and say I was wrong, and I should really give Sam Raimi a deeper look. Like most people, I love Army of Darkness and Ash, but I was really impressed by a movie that I thought was going to be another throwaway Marvel movie. So I really enjoyed that. So I'd like to recommend the new Doctor Strange.
All right.
The Multiverse of Madness.
There we go.
It was very good. I have to agree with you.
Well, my recommendation, I do not have a music documentary, unfortunately, but I do have a biopic, maybe, based on Albert S. Ruddy and his time trying to make The Godfather into reality. It's a miniseries on Paramount Plus. Stars Miles Teller is Albert S. Ruddy. Juno Temple is fantastic in it. It has Colin Hanks, Dan Fogler, Bern Gorman, which if you guys look it up, you're going to be like, oh yeah, he's a bad guy in everything he's in because he's got this look, but he's not really a bad guy. One of my favorite actors still to this day, Giovanni Ribisi. I don't know why. I just love Giovanni. But the guy that stands out to me is Matthew Good, who plays Robert Evans, the president of Paramount. He is absolutely fantastic. But definitely check out The Offer. It's now on Paramount Plus.
I've wanted to watch that, so
I was told by multiple people, Mike, you need to watch it. I'm like, I mean, I'm not that big into The Godfather. Like, I respect it. I understand, but it's never been like up there for me. But watching this, I have kind of a newfound love for it. But anyway, let's go ahead and poke the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Sound City!
Closer than I thought. I didn't realize Tom got extra votes. No.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's it. We did it. We're a month late, but we did it.
We got the can.
We did it. We would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on whatever podcasting service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. If you like us, tell your friends. If you hate us, tell your enemies. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. in June, not only do you get this episode, but you get our actual June episode where we have a showdown as two badass blonde fatales go for the title. It's Atomic Blonde versus Anna. For Gabe, Tom, Kyle, Andrew, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
Sweet.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So, while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Meemaw and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.